Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I am doing my May wrap up. I read 9 books in the month of May. Some of them were very good and some of my favorite of the year, while others were very bad and some of my least favorite I've ever read. So I had a wide variety here. So I had 5 5-stars, I had 2 4-stars, 1 2-star, and 1 1-star unfortunately. So that'll be fun to talk about. But yes, some of these, like I said, were some of my favorites. So let's just get on into it. So the first book I read was The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. This follows a girl named C who 3 years ago woke up on an abandoned island with no recollection of how she got there. The only memories she has is that somewhere far out there she has a sister named Kay and she will do whatever it takes to get back to her. So starting out, I will say that reading this book, I was pretty confused the whole time. Right off the bat, we were thrown into this futuristic scientific world that I had no idea where we were, how it worked, what was going on, and it wasn't explained very well. There wasn't a lot of world buildup. We were just like thrown in there and I almost felt like we were expected to already know everything about the world. I didn't even know it was like a futuristic world when I started reading the book, and all these science terms were being thrown out and I was like, hold on, I don't even know who these people are, I don't know where we are, and I don't know what's going on. So even by the end of the book, I felt like I didn't have a good grasp on the world and what was going on, why we were trying to fix the problems we were. This book also contained like some of like the most plot twists I've ever read in any book. I think there were like 8 or something, and so we were just kind of flip-flop back and forth, plot twist here, plot twist there, and so it was so hard to follow, and I just felt like that's way too many plot twists. I feel like a book should have 1, maybe 2, but this was just so many. Every other page the direction of the story was changing. Another part is these characters were very unlikable, and for me, if characters are unlikable, it's really hard for me to enjoy the story because I am like so angry the whole time reading this. One of these characters like didn't have emotions, and so it was really hard to sympathize with her because she just didn't feel anything either. So it was kind of annoying to read from her point of view a lot. Yeah, like I said, I didn't really care for any of these characters, so I didn't enjoy the story because if I don't care, I'm not gonna care what happens to you. But yes, the ending was also very unsatisfying, left a lot of unanswered questions. I still have no idea what happened, what's going on, so I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Project by Courtney Summers. This follows Lo Denham, who has been left alone for years after her parents died in a car wreck, and her sister B joins an elusive community called the Unity Project. Now, the Unity Project is a cult, and so Lo has not been able to contact B because she is a part of this cult. So Lo is trying to figure out how she can talk to her sister finally after 6 years. So I will start this off by saying I love Courtney Summers' previous book, Sadie. I actually think I enjoyed that one a little bit more, but I still really enjoyed the project and I'm so glad I read it. So once again, this book is about cults, so if that's not your thing, then I would avoid it. But I really like reading cult stories, and sometimes they can be really difficult to read, especially when the character is kind of believing these lies about the cult that they use to draw vulnerable people in. And these characters are so vulnerable after the car wreck, after just certain things that pop up in their life. And so it can be frustrating being an outsider looking in, being like, no, don't listen to them, but what they're saying sounds so good to the character at the time. But it is really interesting to see someone who initially is on the outside of the cult and is so against it, is so set on taking it down, and then watch her as she falls prey into the cult. That's not a spoiler, it's in the summary, because as she's getting closer to find her sister, she kind of starts believing some of these lies that her sister fell for as well. But yes, I really loved this story and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, Maureen Johnson, and Robin Wasserman. This is a collection of short stories in the Shadowhunter world. It follows a certain character going through Shadowhunter Academy to become a Shadowhunter. This is a reread for me. I'm currently rereading all of Cassandra Clare's books so that I can finally continue with the Shadowhunter books that I haven't read. I love this collection so much. It is one of my favorites. Almost every story I cry because previous characters are brought up. It's just so amazing, and the ending of this book, I will say, personally for me, rivals Clockwork Princess's ending with the level of sadness. I give this one 5 out of 5 stars. I love this book. The next book I read, I also have a physical copy of, and that is The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson. This is the 3rd book in the Kiss of Deception series, The Remnant Chronicles. This is the final book in the trilogy, and this one is deceptively large. It doesn't look that big, but it's almost 700 pages, and I flew through it. So I can't tell you what this one's about because it is the 3rd book, but the first one, The Kiss of Deception, follows Princess Leia, and it is her wedding day, and she is marrying a king from a different kingdom that she has never met, and she doesn't want to, so she decides to run away. And in the story, 2 people are sent after her. One is an assassin and one is a prince. She doesn't know who is who, and neither do we as the reader. It is so good. I love this world so much. I love these characters so much. This kingdom, this world, like the abilities that people have, the different kingdoms are just so amazing, and I love them so much, and I want to live in this world forever. It's incredible. I just really love everyone, and I want everyone to read it so very much because I feel like a lot of people haven't read it. And since this book is the 3rd book, I was anxious to see how it ended, and towards the end I was getting really worried with how it was going to end, but ultimately I was very satisfied. I do wish there was like a long epilogue though, because I want to see all the characters and their lives after the struggles they went through in this series. But to wrap up my thoughts, this series was so painful in all the right ways, and I absolutely love it, and I give this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. So this follows 16-year-old Bree, who after her mother dies in a car wreck wants nothing to do with the memories of her old hometown. So she gets accepted into the early college program at UNC Chapel Hill, but on her first night there she witnesses a magical attack. This demon is feeding off of the negative energies of people, and she discovers a secret society of the Legendborn who fight these demon creatures. So this story involves the legend of Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, whatever it's called. So that was very confusing to me because I know absolutely nothing about Arthur. So I was really worried reading this book because I was so confused because there are a lot of ancient names mentioned that I have no idea who they are, and I feel like it would have made a lot more sense if I knew anything about Arthur. I still don't know who he was. Don't really know what they did. So that part was actually pretty confusing for me every time someone or something was mentioned, and I was like, I feel like I should know this, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Another reason that it was a little confusing was because there were so many characters, like I said, past characters as well as future characters. There were so many different names and so many different connections that I felt like I needed to like map everything out. I do think at the end of this book there is a map of all the ancestors and the lines that people follow and things like that. I read an ebook, so I felt like if it was a physical book it would be easier to follow along. However, I fell completely in love with our main characters. Like, they are the type of people that after the story, like a week later, I was still thinking about them. I really, really love them. I think Bree is so strong and so independent and just so fierce, and no one could get in her way. She's absolutely wonderful, and I just really loved all the characters that we were supposed to love. There were characters that I didn't like because you weren't supposed to like them. I also will say I wish the characters were older. So like I said, Bree is 16 and her love interest Nick is 17, but it feels so weird because they are at college. They're at the early college program, and Nick is a 2nd year early college program. So I actually had to Google and make sure that Nick was Bree's age because I got really worried there for a second. So because the setting is college and a lot of the other characters are college age, I wish the main characters were also in their 20s. And then also finally, Bree is a black character, and she is in a secret society, an old secret ancient society, and a lot of these societies are very racist. So one thing the book did was not shy away from that at all. It added so much black culture and black history into the story that just made the story, like, it elevated it so much more, and it taught the reader things as well, especially me as a white reader, just to see what someone of Bree's age goes through on a daily basis. So even though this was pretty confusing for me to start reading, I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Sunkissed by Casey West. This follows a girl named Avery who is on her way to a lodge for her family vacation for the entire summer. Now this lodge is kind of off the grid. There's no service, there's no way to communicate with people, but that's not such a bad problem because Avery was just recently betrayed by her best friend, and so she's kind of going through a heartbreak right now. So this lodge might be just what she needs, and she might meet someone very cute and in a band. So I love Casey West books. I will read any book she puts out. They're just such feel-good, cute contemporary books. Little YA romance. It's so good. I absolutely love it. In this book particularly, I really loved Avery and Brooks a lot. They were just really fun characters. I also really love the setting of this book because it's at a lodge in like a forest, and so I just love forests. I love the idea of being at a lodge for the summer in a forest. It just sounds so magical and so much fun. But yes, I really loved it. There was also some summer camp kind of vibes there because they did do like summer camp activities. It was really fun to read and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Happiness Volume 4 by Shuzo Oshimi. I really love this manga series. It is a vampire manga series, so that's all I'm really going to tell you. I feel like with manga you don't need to explain it too much just because you could get very spoilery, but all you need to know is this is a vampire series and the artwork in here is magnificent. It is so beautiful. You can tell from this cover. This is one of my favorite covers, and this is actually a shorter manga series. There are only 10 volumes. I have read up to volume 4. I'm so excited to keep going and finally finish my first manga series. I'm in the middle of quite a few, but since this one is shorter, I think it'll be the first one I finish. But yes, absolutely love this volume and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Kinder Poison by Natalie May. I read my art copy, and after I read it, I quickly had to buy the finished copy. I absolutely love this book. So this is a fantasy book set in a world where people have different magical abilities, and your kind of caste system is based on your magical ability. So for example, the main character in here, Zaru, she is a whisperer, which means she can talk to animals, which sounds amazing, but unfortunately that means she has a lower caste system. The people that are in the kingdom, like the princes and princesses, they have like really intense abilities, and that's why they're like higher up. And so this kingdom is run by someone named the Mestra. He is the king, and pretty soon he needs someone to take over his position. So his heirs have to go on this long competition across the desert, and at the end of the desert they have to kill a human sacrifice in order to get the king's powers and become the next Mestra. So since Zaru and her friend are kind of a lower caste, they decide to sneak into the palace on the night of this competition starting so that they can live just one night extravagantly, and Hin is really good at sneaking into places. So they sneak into the palace, and of course things go wrong, and Zaru ends up being the human sacrifice at the end of this race. I loved it so much. These characters are so much fun. The princes and the princess are all just very different people, and so you love them and you hate them all in different ways. They're absolutely amazing, but Zaru as a main character is so much fun to read because she is so strong and she is not going to go down without a fight. What's also fascinating about this book is the different types of magic. So I mentioned Zaru is a whisperer. There are also people that can control storms. There are people who can pray to the gods and get their prayers answered. There are people who can create weapons out of ice just on their hands. It's really amazing. I love the magic, and I'm hoping that we can explore it more in the next books. I just really loved it. So good. Love the characters, and nobody's talking about this. Like, please read it. My favorite book of the year, 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read in May, oh, the last book, I read They'll Never Catch Us by Jessica Goodman. So this follows two sisters, Stella and Ellie, and they are at the top of their cross-country team, and they are both vying for a scholarship in order to get out of this town because that's all they really want, is to get out of their really small town that has a really bad past, until one day this new girl moves in, and she is Mila Kane, and Mila Kane is the top runner in the state that she was in, and so yet again, more competition, more people to take down so they can get a scholarship. But one day Mila Kane goes missing, and when they find her, it is very reminiscent of some past murders that happened to cross-country runners years ago, so people are worried that the serial killer is back. So this book, let me preface this by saying cross-country is pretty much my personality. My dad is a cross-country coach. I grew up doing cross-country my entire life, so I know the ins and outs of cross-country. So if you're going to write about it and you do it very wrong, I'm going to have a problem with it. This book was done very wrong. I didn't know that you could do cross country so wrong. Some of my complaints with the way cross country was portrayed, they're living in a town where they mention these running trails so often that they're the most beautiful trails, that people have painted them before because they're so beautiful, but yet they run their practices on the track. That's just not how it works. In some places, people do practice on the track if they don't have a running course or running trails to run on. But the fact that they do have running trails and they're practicing on the track, that's just not how it works. Another thing is they were running a 5K. If you don't know, a 5K is 3.1 miles. So they were racing this once again on the track. If you're going to do a 5K on the track, this is a little over 12 laps. At one point, the character, Stella, she was running the 5K, and she goes, on the 6th and final lap, I took off. Excuse me, 6th and final lap, like I just said, it is over 12 laps. Tracks are 400 meters. They're not any bigger. You're not going to find tracks that are bigger than that. Your standard track is 400 meters, so you should not be running 6 laps for a 5K. That's a mile and a half, not 3.1 miles. That's not how it works. Another thing is the distances for the track measurement were completely wrong. Tracks are in meters, and the author kept saying yards. That's not how it works. Another complaint is when they finally did a trail run, it was a 12-mile trail run. Do you know what the characters did? This is not a spoiler because it's stupid. They, in the middle of the run, they would run a mile, stop, have a party and get drunk, and then run a mile to the finish line, so coach thought they ran the whole thing. Excuse me, partying in the middle of a run? First of all, cross-country runners typically don't party at all, especially with these girls. I know there are people that do party, but these girls that are so serious about making a career out of running do not make the mistake of going out to party, especially during a run. If you're committed to running, you're not going to spend time late at night getting drunk. That's just not how it works. That's not how it works. Also, another thing is the mean girl mentality in this book in the cross-country team. Let me tell you, if you have never been on a cross-country team, runners are like a different breed of people. Some of my years of running, I didn't have teammates, but the other teams, my competition would include me in their team meetings because that's the kind of community that cross-country runners have. Like, you're not going to find a lot of people who do what you do, and so you cling to these people. So the fact that they were mean to each other and hated each other is just not realistic. Another thing is these characters are absolutely horrible. I really disliked them. Every character in this book I could not stand for various different reasons, whether they were a mean girl, whether they were just like super emotionless, whether they just did not care about anything. I just hated everyone in this book. And then also the missing person, the mystery, doesn't come in until about halfway. So the first 50% I just had to agonize and struggle through cross-country misinformation, and it was so painful to read. On the other side of things, if you are not a cross-country connoisseur like I claim to be, I don't know if you'll still enjoy this because the mystery honestly wasn't that fascinating. The big reveal, I didn't care about it. It was not anything mind-blowing. I was just like, okay, is the book over yet? So I don't know, you might give it a try if you want to, but just know that I don't recommend it. I did not like this book, and I'm sorry to the author, but you could have like emailed me and asked me cross-country questions or just reached out to a coach or something because there were so many wrong things. And I know everybody's cross-country experience is different. Everybody's team is different, the way they work, the way they practice. But like I said, I have been in this world for 25 years. I know a lot of people in it. I know a lot of pro runners, so I have a pretty good idea about all the mistakes that this book had. If you couldn't tell, I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. Okay, so my camera is overheating, so I need to wrap up this video. I'm trying to do my wrap-ups better and have more cohesive thoughts, and I think that this video shows that I'm trying to do that because I'm pretty sure that this will be a longer wrap-up for me, which I'm really excited about because I feel like my wrap-ups can be short, and a lot of times I'm either like, I love this, I hated this, but I tried harder. So hopefully you can see that. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!